The first question says, halfway through the project, the sponsor designates an inspector to check the quality of the completed deliverables. The project manager doesn't know the inspector in person, but he overhears that the inspector is not flexible and working with him is usually hard. What should the project manager do? Ask the sponsor to designate another inspector. Actually, this is not always possible, first. And second, the project manager overhears that the inspector is not flexible. And you should not ask for changes based on perceptions, not real data. So this is not appropriate, actually. Let's check B. Ignore the inspector's designation since he is an external stakeholder. An inspector is external stakeholder, yes. Ignoring him, no. That's why B is not a good option either. C. Collaborate with the inspector and provide assistance when needed. Okay, that's fine. When you have an inspector, you collaborate with them. No problem at all. You have a job, there is requirements, there is documentations. If the inspector asks for any questions, you reply to their requests, and that's a correct choice. Let's check D. Use interpersonal skills to talk the inspector into looking past any quality issues and not reporting them to the sponsor. Looking past means here ignoring quality issues and not reporting them to the sponsor. This is unethical, actually. How you are going to influence the sponsor to not doing their work. Actually, their work is to do that. This is not appropriate. This is not ethical, and it should be wrong, of course. So let's confirm the right answer. Yes, C is the right answer. When new stakeholders are identified, they should be analyzed, prioritized, engaged, and then monitored. Let's move to the next question. A project manager is leading a project with remote team members in different geographical areas. During a virtual fortnightly retrospective meeting, here fortnightly means once every 2 weeks. Okay, the project manager finds out that some members either forget, miss, or did not fully understand what was discussed in the previous meeting. What should the project manager do? Ask all team members to try to speak English with an American accent. Is that feasible? Of course not. You cannot change your voice, so how on earth you could request that to the team member? This is wrong for sure. B. Create a new group norm requiring meeting attendees to raise their hands when they don't understand something. That's possible. It's a feature that is supported in many web conferencing tools, if not all of the web conferencing tools. You can raise your hand, and if someone is speaking and find that there is a hand raised, they can stop and allow that member to ask questions. So that's fine. B is a good course of action. Let's see the other options. Record meeting sessions and send the recordings to everyone involved. That's possible too. You can do this as well. Let's check D to confirm. Change the meeting frequency to weekly rather than fortnightly so that team members do not forget what has been discussed. I don't think the frequency is the issue here, because here they not just forget, but they don't fully understand what was discussed. And not understanding, maybe because of the accent of the other participants, maybe because of the speed of speaking. Some people used to speak very fast. I have once met people from New Zealand and Australia, and the people there speak too fast, and it's very difficult even for native speakers to understand some people talking too fast. So maybe recording meetings could help understanding those people, and I would say that B and C is the best course of action. And let's check. Yes, B and C is the right answer. To solve the issue, the project manager can create a group norm inciting attendees to raise their hands. When they have questions, they can also record meeting sessions. All right, let's move on to the next question. A project manager presented a stadium construction project that he believes will benefit the community tremendously. Despite the mayor's agreement to carry out the project manager encountered strong resistance from various stakeholders since the beginning. What should the project manager do to resolve this problem? Okay, resistance happens in many cases. If you are a senior project manager, maybe you have encountered such a situation. So let's see the different options and see what the project manager could do to resolve this problem. Create a responsibility assignment matrix to indicate which stakeholder is responsible for what aspects of the project and who needs to be consulted or informed. If you give the responsibilities to people and you assign responsibilities and these responsibilities are clear, are you resolving the problem of resistance? Of course not. This is planning. It doesn't have any relationship with resistance. So A does not make any sense. Let's check B. Create an organizational diagram to assign each stakeholder to the appropriate project role, allowing or disallowing certain lines of communications. Okay, same here. You are doing a diagram. Are you addressing the resistance? No, this is not the right course of action either. Let's check C. Schedule a meeting with the concerned stakeholders to thoroughly explain the project, discuss the established ground rules, ensure their involvements. This is good. This is like, even without continue reading, it sounds like the right answer, and identify any personal or organizational issues that might surface later on. This is a very excellent course of action. Like, I'm going to give you this guidance even for your real project. You can pause now and think about the situation in your current project. If your current project is having a resistant stakeholder, then you can do this. Try to explain, discuss, get them involved, and try to identify if there is any issues. Here, of course, this resistant stakeholder is going to influence the project. Is not just resistant stakeholder and is not a stakeholder with low interest. I talk about a resistant stakeholder with high interest. So they have interest with the project, but they are resistant because of certain reasons. They don't agree with one or many aspects of the projects for certain reasons. So we need to identify these personal or organizational issues in order to bring them from the resistance quarter to the supportive quarter. Okay, let's check D here. Avoid contacting these stakeholders at the start of the project and instead create a fait accompli to pressure them to support the project due to a lack of alternatives. This is like you put them in the status quo and you avoid contacting them. Of course, it should be a wrong option. You should not avoid key stakeholders. This will not resolve the resistance issue. Okay, so the right answer should be C. And yes, that's correct. Excellent. You need to overcome resistance by listening to the concerns. Let's move on to the next question. A project manager works in a financial institution where data security is accorded the greatest importance. They have recently been assigned to a project for investigating all of the organization's workstations in order to remove any illegal installed software. To successfully implement this project, the project manager needs to collaborate with all departments. During the project execution, they got support from all departments' heads, except for the head of investments, okay, and the head of customer relations. All right. The head of investments always claims that they didn't receive the project manager's emails and thus cannot help them with their requests. Okay, here, this head of investments, they claims that they didn't receive the emails, and as if this is a pretext to not collaborate with the project manager. Okay, let's continue reading. The head of customer relations, on the other hand, seems to be constantly busy and never replies to the project manager's emails, but they do respond directly when the project manager runs across them in the hallway. So they respond directly to the project manager's question when they are meeting together. But this investment man is not responding even when they meet in person. Okay, let's check the question first. How should the project manager classify the head of the investments department and the head of the customer relations department and the stakeholder engagement assessment metrics? They are both resistant. If they are both resistant, the head of customer relations will not respond to the project manager when they meet in the hallway. So this is not right. The head of investment is unaware, while the head of the customer relations is resistant. The head of customer relations is not resistant, actually. He responds directly to the project manager. So that's why this is not correct either. The head of investments is unaware, while the head of the customer relations is neutral. Okay, this could be fine. Like the head of relations is not supportive and is not resistant. So neutral is fine. Let's check the first part. The head of investments is unaware. Actually, unaware is someone who don't know about the project. Like, during the execution, you encounter that person and you say, we are doing this project. Oh, really? What's your project about? This is a person who is unaware. But the head of investments is claiming that they didn't receive emails and they insist on not helping the project manager. So we cannot classify the head of investments as unaware. It should be resistant. And I think that's the option D actually. The head of investments is resistant and the head of customer relations is neutral. That's exactly what describes the current situation. Let's confirm. Yes, the right answer is D. Excellent. Let's move on to the next question. A project manager is leading a complex project with a very demanding sponsor. The sponsor wants to stay on top of every project progress update as well as all planned subsequent work. This sponsor is obsessed with the project. We sometimes find this kind of people or stakeholders within the project that they instantly want to know what's going on. So let's see what's the best way for the project manager to communicate with the sponsor. A, send a comprehensive monthly report. Do you think monthly is sufficient? The sponsor wants to stay on top of every progress. So monthly should not be the right option. Schedule a monthly face-to-face. Same here. Monthly is very long for such a stakeholder. I don't think B is the right option either. Let's check C. Schedule a meeting once or twice a week and let the sponsor know that he can also attend daily stand-ups. Okay, fine. Here, once or twice a week is very frequent. Also, if the sponsor wants to be on top of the progress and know the planned subsequent work, then they can attend the stand-up as well. C could be the right answer, but let's check D to confirm. Schedule a fortnightly meeting. We already said that this is once per 2 weeks, okay? And give the sponsor access to the project management software so they can check real-time updates concerning the project status. Okay, this is not too bad, but if I compare C and D, I would say that C is more addressing the sponsor style of communication because they want to be on top of the progress and they want to be aware of what planned work. So I think C is better. Let's confirm. Yes, since the project is complex, frequent communication is required. Therefore, the best option is to schedule regular meetings once or twice a week. All right, let's move on to the next question. A project manager is leading a project that involves installing 120 air conditioners in a corporate building. The project includes too many stakeholders because every office has at least one air conditioner. It means that they could have two or three. What is the best course of action for the project manager to deal with the situation? Ask the sponsor to represent all of the stakeholders. Okay, do you think the project sponsor can accept? Even though the project sponsor could accept, do you think that this will be efficient? Maybe not, because you need to engage the other stakeholders, involve them, and having one sponsor that represent all of the stakeholders is not appropriate because as a project manager, you should take care of yourself with the project management team. Keeping in mind that this is a traditional project, we are not in agile settings or in a Scrum framework where we have a product owner that represent stakeholders. We are in a traditional project management, and in normal situations, the project manager should involve all stakeholders and try to engage all stakeholders. That's why A is not the right course of action. Let's check B, set up an effective way to define the needs of each stakeholder. This is making more sense. I would say this is a right course of action until finding maybe better options. Let's see C and D. Classify stakeholders and only work with those who have high power and interest. Okay, it's fine to prioritize stakeholders. I mean, with this option, classify stakeholders looks fine. You can prioritize stakeholders. We already have seen the steps for stakeholder engagements. And we said that first you identify stakeholders, then you understand and analyze them, then you prioritize them. So classifying stakeholders, prioritizing them is fine. My problem is this only work with those who have high power and interest. Even though you prioritize stakeholders, you should keep in mind that you need to engage them according to their power and interest. It doesn't mean that you work with some and ignore the other. Okay, so that's why this option is not the appropriate course of action. Let's see the other last option. Inform their senior management that the project should be divided into sub-projects so that it will be managed as a program instead. Here, according to the situation, you don't need a program. This project is having a definite scope. We don't need to have two projects and try to manage them as a program and align their objectives to maximize the benefit. No, we are not in such situation. This is straightforward. Installing 120 air conditioners could be done in one single project, and among the project manager responsibility is to engage the stakeholders appropriately. So let's confirm that B is the right option. Yes, the project manager needs to implement an efficient approach to identify the needs of all project stakeholders. All right, let's move on to the next question.